Hello and welcome to FinTech Impact. I'm your host, Jason Pereira. Today on the show, we have Justin Adler, co-founder and COO of NorthOne. NorthOne is a challenger bank specifically servicing American small business owners. And with that, here's my interview with Justin. Justin, thanks for taking the time.
Yeah, great to be here.
So Justin Adler of NorthOne, tell us about NorthOne.
Yeah, so NorthOne, as you said, is a digital challenger bank specifically made for the needs of small business owners across the country. And really in a nutshell, NorthOne lets small business owners get all their day-to-day banking done, and all their kind of core financial activity done without ever having to step into a bank branch. And the goal was to transform what would be a really burdensome experience at a traditional bank into one that's simple, fast, and efficient. Think of us kind of like Uber for banking and financial management. And I think what makes us really special is that beyond that value proposition, before we launched, certainly before we even wrote a single line of code, my co-founder and I talked to a small army of accountants, literally like 100 strong. And we asked them, what would be the 5 to 10 things that you would do month one in a typical small business that you started working with? And we actually distilled those controls and tools and systems down and baked them into the tool that every small business owner in the country already uses, which is the bank account. And so not only do we let small business owners get their banking done faster and more efficiently, but we've also designed a banking platform and a bank account that really is purpose-built to create better financial habits and generate better financial outcomes for business owners that use NorthOne.
Okay, so we'll jump into that. Talk to me about the origin of the company. Where did the idea come from?
Yeah, great question. It's funny, when my co-founder and I met, we realized that professionally we have very little in common. I'm a serial entrepreneur. I founded my first startup at 17. I've been working in early stage ever since on both the founder side and the VC side. My co-founder was a former lawyer, passed the New York bar, and then a little later on in life was the leader of McKinsey & Company's financial service practice here in North America. Now, despite the kind of asymmetry in our professional paths, we both had very similar foundational experiences, and we both come from very similar kinds of families. We both come from families of entrepreneurs where literally like everyone, parents, uncles, aunts, cousins, etc., either owned a small business or worked for one of the family small businesses. And, when you grow up in that type of household, you see firsthand the power that small business can unlock, the nice life that your family has, which is a direct result of their hard work, right? But you also see the downside of it. You see the worried glances around the dinner table. You see your loved one struggling with shoebox receipts on nights and weekends. And, I think that left a marked impression on both of us. We really felt like small business and entrepreneurship was and still is the single best tool that folks have for economic mobility, but it is a risky path, particularly for first-time entrepreneurs, and it's a path that really needs to be de-risked. And so that's really kind of the mission we embarked on when we first met. We didn't necessarily know it was going to be a challenger bank that we were going to build. We just knew, hey, this is an important problem. It's one worth solving. And what we did was, again, we flew around the country, literally like zigzagging between like Texas, Iowa, Florida, California, talking to literally like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of small business owners, everyone from like doctors' offices and lawyers' offices to construction workers, brick and mortar, mom and pop shops, e-commerce runners, landscapers, everyone in between. And we realized that the problems that we had seen growing up were so widespread and so commonplace. And they really resulted from the fact that small business owners are generally really good at what they do, right? Like you're great at your craft, but you are so ill-prepared and ill set up for the financial management side of running your business. And so we realized that, rather than build, a dashboard, a better accounting service or something like that, we would actually just reimagine the one tool that they were all comfortable using and they already all used, which was the bank account.
So as someone who grew up in a small business and runs his own, totally understand that entire journey you just mentioned. So very, very near and dear to my heart in reality. Okay, so let's talk about what you did to solve the challenges. Because you're right. There's no one gets into business to handle bookkeeping and accounting and tracking, but it is, the day-to-day banking is so vital, which rolls up again to the accounting level, which is required for strategic decision making. So talk to me about how you're differentiating yourself in this space and what value you're bringing to the table.
Sure. I think the answer's changed, right? Like when we started off and launched back in 2019, the space was just a lot less mature than it is today. And so really like our initial value proposition was to say, hey, if you're at Bank of America, if you're at Wells Fargo, if you're at the first bank of whatever town you live in, you are probably shoved into a retail banking product, right? And so if you need to send a wire, if you send an ACH payment, if you need to deposit a check, if you need to pay a vendor, you cannot do that digitally. You got to drive to the local bank branch. For some folks who live in rural parts of the country, that means that there's upwards of 30 to 45 minute drive each way. And I guess worse yet, the worst version of that is sometimes you actually have to call in to a 1-800 number that's only open between 10 and 4. There's an hour plus wait to actually talk to a person, right? So that was really the value prop, was to say, hey, how do we remove that? How do we remove the opportunity cost of doing that day-to-day banking from the business owner, so that we could turn that really cumbersome, burdensome experience into something that really felt like as trivial as like posting something to Instagram. Like you wouldn't even think about it, right? I think as the space has evolved, though, we've really looked at differentiating in two ways. So first, making sure that our feature set, and really down to not just the technology feature set, but like the features of the bank account, right, can support a true small business, like not a hobbyist entrepreneur, not someone who has an Etsy shop that's making 3 sales a month, but like a real business that has employees, a business where the business owner is supporting themselves and their family. And that means that your wire limits can support that, your deposits can support that, you have cash deposits. I think those types of features that seem like very like, of course you would have this, are still, I would say, in the challenger banking space, actually pretty rare. So I think we've differentiated in that way. It's really focusing on that Main Street business customer. I think the other thing that we've done is really double down on a lot of those conversations we had with accountants early on. So one example of this is a feature that we developed in correlation with an organization called Profit First. They're based around the New York Times bestseller. They have like 700,000 members. We're all small businesses across the country. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and so we actually co-designed a feature with them called the NorthOne Profit First envelope system. And this allows a small business owner to literally with one click drag and drop an automatic budgeting system, so that whenever they deposit money, the correct amount is sequestered for things like rent, payroll, taxes. Their own profit.
Let's just talk about that for a second. Let's just talk about that for a second. To Brock, and I've actually given kind of entrepreneurial seminars on how to use this method as a means of organizing your cash flow. So all cash tends to basically in a business dump into one account. Now, the mental gymnastics a business owner has to do to basically remember how much needs to be in there for all their obligations, taxes, payroll, rent, you name it, all of that. It's pretty substantial. So people come up with complex budgets and different systems and threshold for what they want to remain there. But Profit First flips this on its head and says, no. You're going to have a couple of different accounts or sub-accounts, and you're going to basically automatically route, once the money hits the account, money into the various sub-accounts. And those are all earmarked for different things. So you'll have one for rent, you'll have one for taxes, you'll have one for payroll, you'll have one for operating costs, and you'll have one for profit. And you'll make sure that you're taking the profit one every month and making sure that you're and then managing your operating costs to make sure you don't run out of money. And that makes sure that you're prioritizing profit and everything else above the operations the flighty things we do with our business money. So what you're saying is you've built a system to basically implement that entire cash flow coaching model.
Yeah, exactly. And it's actually funny, we as I said, we co-designed the system with the leaders of the Profit First organization. And they actually came to us with a problem. And they said, hey guys, we're looking for someone who's digital banks serving small businesses who understands the importance of cash flow management. A lot of folks in the space, again, really kind of about this idea of saying like, hey, how do we just kind of digitize what big banks are already doing? How do we make this sort of like a nicer experience? But I think they were really looking for a partner to really take the fundamentals of this Profit First system, actually kind of integrate that and digitize it and make it really automated and easy to set up. And so we co-designed the system with them. And to your point, this has actually come up in our conversations early on with accountants and bookkeepers, was that a lot of folks would exactly set up multiple bank accounts, the whole kind of allocation process would be a manual one, right? Like you look at the money at the end of the day or the end of the week, you say, okay, I want to
take a pricey one. Multiply 5 bank accounts. It's like, so exactly. You're paying 5 business banking fees. It gets expensive.
Yeah, exactly. There's human error and stuff that can happen there. So what we actually did with them was figure out, okay, so like, how do we understand the tax rate per state? How do we understand, what allocations are appropriate for different buckets? And we've just automated that. And so business owners can go, you can adjust it and tweak it so that it's, it's your need. But we've really designed a sort of, I think something that's good for 95% of business owners that can be set up literally in one click when a customer starts off with NorthOne. And I think, again, this has led to really, I think, dramatically better financial health. One thing that we've been really proud of is that we're really attacking with tools like this and others. I think one of the biggest threats to the economy today, which is the failure rate of small businesses. I don't know if you know this, Jason, but small businesses fail at like a substantial rate, right? Like 50% of small businesses will fail over a 5-year time horizon. That means every 5 years, we're churning about 15 million small businesses in the economy. Now,
and certain sectors of the economy even worse. I mean, restaurants tend to fail 50% in the first year,
exactly,
and 90% over a 5-year basis, right? So
exactly,
and big survivorship.
We're really proud of the fact that we've been able to already, I think, really kind of make meaningful gains in that area. We looked at the failure rate of businesses using NorthOne, and they're substantially lower, about 75% lower than the national average since we launched.
Well, a little bit of survivorship bias. You're getting people who are responsible enough to do this, right? So,
of course, that's
real value. No, but nonetheless, I mean, like even to those who would have survived without you, you're making their life easier, right? Like the reality, like we said, the idea of having to, especially when, depending on the nature of the business, if you get paid in batches, whatever it might be, but most people have money coming in every day. And the idea of having to go at the end of the day and being like, okay, this much to here, this much to there, this much to there, right? It's a tedious task that can be automated, which you've done. So kudos.
Yep. I mean, and that's really kind of like the thesis at the heart of NorthOne, right? Is saying like, hey, how do we remove things that are burdensome and time consuming from the life of a small business owner, so that like, hey, listen, if you're a chef and you started a restaurant because you love cooking, we want you to spend more time cooking. We don't want you to spend time, on back office admin that you probably hate and would just really like be very happy if you never have to do it again.
Agreed. So, okay. So you help people with this entire profit first system. You're putting people in, envelopes or sub accounts, whatever you want to call them. But nevertheless, it's basically splitting up by dollars or percentages and making sure that when the taxman comes calling, the money's sitting there. When payroll is necessary, it's done, which is fantastic. I mean, that's a great little automation feature. Talk to me about what else you've done in this space.
Yeah, for sure. One of the big features that we've worked on this year has been really about defining more convenient ways for folks to get paid and make payments. And so an example of this would be our NorthOne real-time ACH feature that we just launched about 2 months ago. This is really a system that we've devised, which says like, hey, if you need to make a payment quickly, which a lot of folks enjoy, right? They don't want to have to plan out their payments several days in advance. You want to maybe optimize cash flow, as you were saying. A lot of businesses have pretty lumpy cash flows, and there's spikes and valleys. So how do you kind of bring that same value of, say, like a wire transfer, where payment gets processed and received very quickly? How do you do that in a more economically appealing way? Because wires are expensive, right? They're also a little cumbersome to send sometimes. And so, we worked with our team to really figure out like, hey, how do we take that functionality of ACH and just make it as fast as possible? And so we've been able to launch our same-day ACH feature. We've seen really great adoption with customers. And it's really interesting too, right? Like you see customers who had never sent a wire before and were really, major ACH consumers really switching over to this. And there's a nominal fee. And I think folks are really excited and happy to pay for that convenience, right? To make sure that their money gets set faster. And it's there's more certainty around processing times. So we've done that. I think the other really exciting feature that we've launched again around this theme of convenience and offering customers the ability to pay in which they pay using different methods and really allowing them to send money, but according to how they want to send money, I guess, rather than forcing them to use 2 or 3 different rails, is our physical checks feature. A lot of our customers are in traditional industries, and some folks still want to make payments by check. A lot of folks, especially that have rent payments, want to be able to pay with a paper check. And I will tell you, Jason, they've told us that not only do they want to be able to pay with a paper check, but that check like writing and sending process is a laborious one, right? You're doing it every month. Maybe you have to write a batch of checks at the beginning of the year when you sign your commercial lease. And maybe change your bank account, or maybe you want to make changes to it or something, and then you have to rewrite them. So what we've done is actually create a proprietary feature within the NorthOne app that allows customers to give us the information of the recipient and then schedule those payments in. And we will actually, through a partnership that we have, actually send out, like print and then send out those paper checks on behalf of the customer. So again, it's really about removing that burden from the business owner and allowing them to spend more time doing what matters.
So, all right, that's where you are today. Anything else that any other sales pitch you're gonna give me on the features like integrations and whatnot?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we worked on a ton of integrations too. I think for us, what we've really focused on, like in a nutshell, we focused on integrations that really allow the bank account to do what it does best, right? Like for so many small business owners, there is this constellation of products and services that they use to run their business's finance department, right? There's their payroll system, their accounting system, a lending and credit facility, et cetera. But the bank account sits kind of uniquely in the center of that, right? It's like their source of truth. And Jason, I'm sure you know, and this is familiar to you, but so many small business owners use cash basis accounting to like make decisions for what they can afford, what they can buy, right? And so the bank account acts as really that source of truth. It's how much money do I have today, not in outstanding accounts receivable, like in real dollars that I can spend. And so I think a lot of what we've also focused on this year has been building on integrations so that the business owner can get a wider circumference of view and expand the view of what's going on in their business through the NorthOne bank account, right? They can pull in more data from other systems and be able to really understand how money's flowing through their business. And I think that's what it's all about, right? Like if we think about that failure rate of small businesses that we talked about just a few moments ago, we know that of those small businesses that close, 85% of them close due to a lack of understanding or visibility into the cash flow of their business. So these are not like a cafe that makes bad coffee. This is like a business that's being run by someone that just loses track of accounts receivable, accounts payable. Maybe they don't have enough money to get their tax at the end. They miss payroll, and then things really just spiral down from there. So our ability to provide not just control, but really visibility to small business owners so they can make better choices and more informed choices, I think is really how we kind of transform those outcomes. And so that's what we focused on this year as well. And I think it's what we're going to be really focusing on next year too.
Absolutely. I mean, especially because any number of payment systems like you've integrated with, there's a delay in those payments, right? Just being able to see and understand where that's coming from. And you made the point about the source of truth and the bank, people are using cash basis for running their business. That leads to inefficient investments in working capital, right? More cash in the business than you need to, or expenditures being held off because you think you don't have the cash flow for it. So it's, anything you can do to do that is a net positive in terms of ROI. So good on you. So this is, so that pretty much, I think encapsulates most of where you are today. Like, where do you see this going, or what do you have planned for the next little while that you can talk about without violating anything?
Yeah, no, listen, it's a great question. So I think, it really builds on what we were talking about just a moment ago. So if we think about that constellation of products and services in that financial back office for an average small business, right? There's anywhere, like if I'm thinking about an average small business in America, like not a tech startup or something, but just an average business, there's anywhere between 12 and 20 different relationships that they maintain. Now, most small business owners, certainly the ones we've talked to, have identified the fact that it's really hard for them to go through that, I've seen a bigger company, what we call like a procurement process, right? Really to do shopping and understand like, hey, which of these is the right one for my business, which makes the most sense for me, which has the best reputation, which has the best feature set, what are the differentiators? So I think that applies from everything from, say, like an insurance product or a payroll tool, all the way through credit and lending. And I will tell you, Jason, big banks, like traditional banks, have not made this an easier prospect. The fact of the matter is, if I'm a small business owner and I'm say a Wells Fargo customer, and I go into my Wells Fargo branch, say, hey,
my sympathies, but continue. Sorry.
I'm thankfully not. But say I was. I mean, nothing against Wells actually, but I'm just using them as an example. And I say, hey, I talked about the person who's in charge of my small business bank account. Say, my business needs a line of credit, or it needs a insurance product, or it needs a credit card. They will show me the Wells Fargo portfolio of those products. When in fact, the product that might serve me best, that might make the most sense, might be a Bank of America across the street, or it might be a fintech that is unaffiliated with the bank. And I think for us, we really see the future of the product and the best way to serve the customer as abstracting the NorthOne from just being a bank account to really being a platform that really kind of can connect that small business owner to a variety of different products and tools and services that they need. And listen, in some cases, that means that we'll be producing our own products. And in some cases, that might mean that we're curating a best of breed selection based on what we know about the customer, right? But it's really about making sure that NorthOne, at the end of the day, is a platform that can act almost as like the connective tissue, really connecting the dots for that small business owner, so that those tools and services they're using are not these disparate things that are like maybe connected via like a very bare bones API, but really part of that same ecosystem.
Okay, excellent.
Sure.
So talk to me about how what the user experience is like. I mean, you're already keeping these people from going broke, which is fantastic. But let's talk about what it is to onboard as a customer, and what kind of feedback are you getting from customers after they've done so?
Yeah, for sure. So time to onboard is something that we've optimized for, especially over the last year. When we actually, it's a funny story. When we came up with the idea for the product, and really like we were pre-launch, my co-founder was at a dinner with a number of big traditional institutional bankers, and was mentioning, hey, we want to onboard someone. Again, remember, it's like I think this is early 2019, maybe in late 2018. And so, he mentioned to them, hey, so we want to digitally onboard someone, and we want to do it in less than 5 minutes. And he got laughed at by a lot of these folks, which is now funny because it seems so obvious. But when we launched, we nailed that 5-minute onboarding time. Today, we've cut that down to a place where the majority of customers can get through everything from filling out their application to us validating the information on their application, to getting onboarded into the bank account, to having funding happen in less than 3 minutes. And that's a really important demarcation, because we know, like when we survey small business owners, and we do this regularly, a large majority of them, in fact, I'm looking at the answers from our last survey, about 70% of folks said that one of the most important things when thinking about switching the banking app that their small business used was the time it took to apply and get started, and the ease of that process. And I think that's just one part of it. I think where we honestly get the most positive feedback for, and we get I think customers really tell us they love us, but they show they love us by really referring their colleagues and folks in their communities, and really just kind of talking to us and telling us they enjoy our products and services. But I think the other two pieces that we really get just a ton of positive feedback on are, one, really just the ease of using the application, the fact that it's designed for someone who is not necessarily a finance person, does not have a finance degree. Everything is written in very plain English. It's very easy to understand what you're doing. There's no like paragraphs of small print that have some potentially dastardly thing hiding in there. But also just the speed at which they can actually get through their work. A customer told us in an interview several months ago that they were previously at one of the large traditional banks. To save them embarrassment, I won't mention which one, but it would
save them embarrassment. There's no need to on that. Go ahead.
It would take them about 15 minutes to set up a new payee and send them an ACH. In NorthOne, it takes
15 minutes for a payee and send them money.
Yeah, takes less than a minute on NorthOne. So they really like that. And then I think lastly, the other thing that we get a lot of customer love about is the way in which we provide customer support. Even if you have a great product, even if you have a great service, customers have questions, they need help, stuff happens. And I think I just want to give like a huge thank you to our customer service team who provides just exceptional and tireless support to our customer base. And I think we've really engineered an interesting way to do this. I think so many fintechs, especially in the challenger banking space, offer really bare bones customer support. We've gone the other way with it, and actually, customers can not only do get support via like email and live chat, but we also offer, I think, a very interesting mode version of phone support. Instead of having a 1-800 number, if you've ever gotten support from Apple or Amazon, we actually allow customers to tell us when they're free. They can book a time with one of our customer service experts, and our customer service expert will actually call them. So you're getting customer support on your schedule. We like to say, once you sign up with us, you will never wait on hold for your bank again.
Good stuff. So once you'll never wait on hold for your bank account again. Well, that is it's quite the promise.
Yeah, it's something that we've been able to offer, and we're really thankful for it. And listen, it's because of how we positioned our business, right? Like, I think a lot of folks in our space really have gone the route of saying, like, hey, how do we offer a stripped down version of a bank account, stripped down version of customer servicing, but we're going to offer it for free. We've always stood behind the idea that if you make a product and service that's good, customers should be happy to pay a fair price for it. And so we today charge a $10 subscription fee, and that really allows us to really provide like excellent services and products for our customers in a way that I think a lot of our competitors are just unable to.
Excellent. So it's, you're preaching to the choir, right? I mean, there's something that happens in human psychology around the concept of free, that people are much more willing to consume it than not, even if it's garbage. But at the same time, when it's something as mission critical as your business and the pain in the butt of $15 to set up an ACH payment and make a payment, you're absolutely right. Like, there's a definitely willingness to pay for utility. And frankly, I get enough crappy service everywhere I go that I don't need more if I can avoid it in something that's so mission critical to my life.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep.
So,
I think that's, to your point, Jason, I think that's something that we see a lot in fintech is I think folks are so worried about saying like, hey, can I build a product that someone would use? And really the important question is, can I build a product that someone would pay for, right? That means you're actually solving you're solving an important problem, and you're solving it in a way that's really meaningful.
Absolutely. So, all right, before we wrap up, there's 3 questions I asked everybody on a positive note. First one is, if you had one wish for something you could change in your company, the industry as a whole, what would it be?
Oh man, that's a really good question. So I think there is such a desire for folks to solve easy to solve problems, right? The problem is a lot of those easy to solve problems are not necessarily ones that are worth solving. So I'll give you an example. There's tons of products and tools that are made for, frankly, guys like me, like people who live in a city that has a thriving tech industry, that run venture-backed startups that have had successful careers. And candidly, I'm not hurting for a lack of financial service options. I'm very well served. I might even say overserved. And I think that unfortunately, the folks that are outside of kind of that view of the tech media and a lot of tech investors are the majority of Americans. And they are folks with really important problems to solve and economically advantageous problems to solve, but ones that unfortunately are not necessarily front of mind when I guess entrepreneurs who spend a lot of time in the tech world, or VCs who live in the tech bubble, are thinking about what problems are really worth solving. So I would say that would be awesome to see the fintech industry as a whole pivot towards.
Second question is basically, what's been the biggest challenge of getting the company where it is today?
Yeah, it's again a great question. I think probably the biggest challenge has been really kind of like navigating the rapidly changing compliance environment, understanding like how you can talk about your product, how you can talk to your customers about the product. And I think at the end of the day, everyone wants the same thing, right? We want to make sure fintechs, banks, regulators, I think everyone wants the same thing, which is to make sure that when you're launching a product, when you're selling a product to a customer and onboarding them to the product, you are doing it in a way where the customer has a clear understanding of what the product is, what it does, how much they'll be paying for it. And I think that unfortunately, there's been some folks, and I'm not talking about just challenger banking in general, I'm talking about fintech more broadly, that have maybe not necessarily been as forthright as, and forthcoming about what the product is and how it works and what it does and all that stuff as they could have been. And I think this leads to a situation where regulators maybe sometimes overprescribe how to kind of resolve that, right? And while, I mean, we certainly haven't had any trouble with this, when you are working in an industry where, regulation is being written as the industry evolves, it means that you need to be really nimble, and you need to be really kind of ready and to how regulators are feeling across the different administrations. And so that's something that we pay a lot of attention to. And, thankfully, we have great partners that work with us on this. But I think it's certainly a challenge in fintech in general, and certainly in the challenger banking space.
It's funny because people often ask, you think all Apple and all these companies are going to get into finance and everything else. And they're already there, but they're using third-party partners because they don't want to deal with the ridiculous regulations they would have to deal with in this industry. It is, heavily regulated for a very good reason, but doesn't exactly go well with nimble, quick, and technology all the way. Yeah. So last question for you. What excites you the most about what it is you're working on and keeps you getting up in the morning to keep on fighting the good fight that is startup entrepreneurship?
Yeah, I think honestly, there's a few things. I think first and foremost, it's our team. Our team is certainly, I would say, the group of the single most exceptional people I've ever worked with. It is a team that is just absolutely ruthless in execution and delivering value for the customer. And so I think, I think that this is sort of our mantra, right? We refuse to be the bottleneck. We refuse to let things launch or go out the door that are substandard for us. And I think that's one of the biggest motivators. And then I think the other motivator is really kind of the value we provide to our customer. We are, as I said, we're not providing incremental value to an unimportant problem, to a small and super niche customer base. We're solving really big problems for a group of customers that I think are a really important part of the U.S. economy. And I think when we talk to customers, when we see the value that we're providing them, that's certainly a big motivator. And I think it really is a mission that's very personal to me, right? I think back to the struggles that I saw, my family have as small business owners. And I think that is such a motivating factor every day when we go into work and we feel like, today is just another opportunity to make a difference for small business owners and give them a better way and more certainty to really kind of put food on the table for their families.
Well, Justin, thank you so much for this. Greatly appreciate it. And good work, quite honestly. If you can help keep more businesses going for longer and more effectively, it'd be greatly appreciated to also not really appreciated just by me, but by them and frankly, all of society.
Hey, thanks so much, Jason.
And thank you for listening to this week's episode of FinTech Impact. If you are an American business looking to better your banking experience, please take the time to look at NorthOne. As always, if you enjoyed this podcast, please leave a review on Apple Podcasts, SoundCloud, Stitcher, Spotify, or wherever it is that your podcast. Until next time, take care.
This podcast was brought to you by Woodgate Financial, an award-winning financial planning firm catering to high net worth individuals and their families. To learn more, go to woodgate.com. You can subscribe to this podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, and Google Play, or find more episodes at jasonpereira.ca.